In my work, I teach people to own any room, whether it is the boardroom, the courtroom, the negotiating room, the bedroom, the Zoom room, any room that you might think of. And a lot of times people think that that is all about body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice. And it is, but not in the way that you think. You see, if you spend your time focused on what is my body doing? What is my facial expression doing? Am I supposed to be holding my hands this way or this way or this way or this way? Steeples, no pointing. Am I supposed to be smiling or am I supposed to be frowning? Is my natural frown going to turn people off? What are they thinking about the way that I'm holding my shoulders? My shoulders aren't supposed to be up here. It's exhausting and it's distracting. And what will ultimately happen is that people will hear that distraction in your voice. They will see that sort of nervousness in your eyes. And so that is not the best way to own any room, focusing on all of those things. They're interesting. And if you're super comfortable in a space or in a room, you might be able to optimize your facial expressions, your tone of voice, and your body language. But here's the secret. Tone of voice especially. Let's focus on that. The reality is that your tone of voice is very difficult to fake. And Yale study tells us that people can tell more about your emotions, your state of mind from your tone of voice than from your body language and your facial expressions combined. So if thinking about your body language, your facial expressions, how are you holding your shoulders, where are you putting your hands, is making you nervous or stressed out or frustrated, people will hear your nervousness and your stress and your frustration in your voice, and you will be at a disadvantage. So what's the answer? The answer is to own this room, the space in your head first. Because if you get to a place where you are in full belief that your message in that room will serve the people in that room, will change the people in that room, will impact the people in that room in a positive way, your body language and your facial expression, and most especially your tone of voice, will reflect that. No problem. Once you own this room. The other piece of it is that your tone of voice will naturally become more confident, more sure, more relaxed when you are in belief. And then everything else follows. It always reminds me of a case I once tried. So I was a trial attorney for 25 years. I defended doctors in medical malpractice cases. When doctors get sued, they are angry, they are frustrated, they are scared, they're sad. And a lot of my work was using my psychology degree to counsel my doctors through that. One of the things I always noticed was right before they went on to testify, they were, of course, especially nervous. And what I would try to do was to distract them by telling them about a movie I had been seen right recently, or a book I had just read, or what I had for lunch. And one particular day, I had a doctor who was about to testify, and we were on lunch break. And I made the mistake of telling him about a study I had just read that showed that people who move their hands more often are more compelling than those who don't. And he was interested in that study, and we were both geeking out about it a little bit. But then he went up to the witness stand to testify, and he conducted an orchestra with his hands. He kept knocking the microphone over with his hands and it would tumble to the floor and the court officer would have to pick it up and put it back. And I was really hoping that my facial expressions and my body language didn't show how nervous this was making me. But ultimately, and very quickly, the jury went out to deliberate in that case and they came back like a snap and we won that case. It was not because he moved his hands. It was because he believed. In our entire prep for that trial, and it's usually about 2 years from the day that a lawsuit is filed to the day that we tried the case in the jurisdiction where I practiced, which was Philadelphia. And that entire time, he had reviewed his medical records, the literature on the procedure that he had done, the studies on the procedure that he had done. And we had talked about it. And we had talked about the story of why he did what he did and the evidence that supported that story back then and still to the day of the trial. And so by the time that we got to the trial, his belief was sure. It was a strong foundation for his tone of voice and his body language and his facial expressions. If he hadn't had that belief and was moving his hands around like a maniac, it would have hurt us. But his belief was reflected in his facial expressions. And most importantly, to the jury's ear, in his tone of voice. The same is true for you. I know that so many of us want that secret magic bullet that will allow us to kill our insecurity and feel like we can walk into any room and use this little secret to do it, to own the room. But the true secret is for you to be in belief, to believe in yourself, to believe that you deserve the attention and the respect that you're there to receive, to believe that you deserve to own the room and allow others to own it when the time is right for them as well. Because when you are strong in that belief, your body language, your facial expression, and your tone of voice will be perfection. I did it in the courtroom for 25 years, but more importantly, I taught my witnesses to do it. I taught them that when it was their turn to speak, when they sat in that witness stand, they had the skills to own the room. And yes, it included the story they told, the evidence they shared, and the way that they shared it. But most of all, it was grounded in the room up here and owning that space with the full strength of their own belief. Get in belief and don't worry so much about what you do with your hands. They will follow.